Welcome. You've joined us for a deep dive into something that, well, affects so many of us, weight management.
hmm
But today, we're really moving beyond just, calories in, calories out.
Yeah, we're going deeper. We're exploring that really complex interplay of your hormones and how they're kind of orchestrating your weight behind the scenes.
Exactly. And we've pulled together some pretty solid sources for you. There's a scientific review from PMC, some great stuff from Healthline, and also the Nutrition and Nourishment Collective.
Right, a good mix. So the idea is to sort of cut through the noise and get you the key insights.
Yeah, our mission here is really to pull out the actionable stuff from all this research. We want you to understand how these tiny chemical messengers are, well, often calling the shots with weight.
And to do it without making it feel like you're, stuck in a biology class.
Hopefully not. So let's just dive right in. First up, a really big player, insulin.
Okay, insulin. Your
Mm.
pancreas makes it. And its main job is like being the key for glucose sugar from your food to get into your cells.
For energy, right? Or storage.
Exactly, for energy or, yeah, for storage. But the issue arises with insulin resistance. That's when your cells start sort of ignoring insulin's signal.
And that's linked to more than just weight gain.
Oh, yeah. It's strongly connected to obesity, but
Mhm.
also type 2 diabetes and even heart disease. It's a serious concern.
Okay, so if your cells aren't listening, how do you improve that sensitivity? The sources had tips, right?
It did. Regular exercise gets a big thumbs up.
Hmm.
Both high-intensity stuff and more moderate workouts seem to help.
Right.
Improving sleep habits is another big one, letting your body regulate properly overnight.
Makes sense.
And then there's diet, boosting omega-3 fatty acids, the good fats from fish, nuts, seeds, plant oils.
Hmm.
And the Mediterranean diet comes up a lot too. Lots of veggies, healthy fats. Seems really beneficial.
So it connects to diet quite strongly and weight itself.
Absolutely. Maintaining a moderate weight is crucial.
Yeah.
And even which carbs you eat matters.
Yeah.
Focusing on low glycemic, high fiber ones.
Like whole grains, fruits, veggies, legumes, the slow burn stuff.
Exactly. They don't spike your blood sugar as much, which helps insulin do its job better.
Okay, got it. Let's shift to another hormone then. Leptin, the fullness hormone.
That's the one. Leptin's job is basically to tell your hypothalamus, that's a part of your brain, hey, we're full here. Stop eating.
A pretty important signal.
Crucial. But like insulin, you can develop resistance, leptin resistance.
Meaning the stop eating message doesn't get through properly.
Exactly. So you might keep eating even when your body doesn't actually need more fuel.
What causes that resistance? Is it clear?
It's still being researched, honestly. Inflammation seems to play a role, maybe some genetic factors. And interestingly, having obesity itself can lead to producing too much leptin, which paradoxically might contribute to the resistance.
Wow, that's complex. So if you suspect that fullness cue isn't working well, what can help?
Well, again, maintaining a moderate weight seems key. It can help lower those high leptin levels. Improving sleep quality is also highlighted, especially for people carrying extra weight.
Sleep again. Seems important.
Very. And no surprise here, regular exercise pops up again as potentially helpful for leptin function.
Okay, exercise, sleep, weight management, recurring themes. Now what about the flip side? The hunger hormone, ghrelin.
Right, ghrelin.
Yeah.
Produced mainly in the stomach. It signals the hypothalamus that your stomach's empty, time to find food.
Makes sense. But there's a twist with obesity here too, isn't there?
There is. It's quite fascinating. Research suggests people with obesity often have lower levels of ghrelin circulating.
Lower. You'd expect higher if it drives hunger.
You would.
Eh.
But they might be more sensitive to its effects. So even less ghrelin might trigger stronger hunger pangs.
Huh. So the body's interpretation changes. What helps manage ghrelin then?
Well, the advice circles back. Maintaining a moderate weight to potentially reduce that sensitivity. Good sleep hygiene, again,
Right.
and also simply eating regularly and really tuning into your body's hunger and fullness signals.
Yeah.
Not ignoring them, not overriding them constantly.
Listening to your body. Okay. Let's talk about cortisol, the stress hormone. Most people have heard of this one.
Yeah, cortisol. Key part of that fight or flight response. Absolutely essential in short bursts.
But the problem is when it stays high long term, right?
Exactly. Persistently high cortisol. That's where the trouble starts. The sources link it to a whole host of issues.
Like,
Heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, sleep disturbances. And, very relevant for us today, weight gain.
especially around the middle, that abdominal fat.
Precisely. That visceral fat seems particularly linked to high cortisol, and there could be this nasty feedback loop.
How so?
Well, obesity itself can sometimes contribute to higher cortisol levels. And then the high cortisol encourages more fat storage, especially abdominal fat. It feeds itself.
Wow, that sounds like a tough cycle. How do you break it? How do you lower cortisol?
Okay, strategies. Optimizing sleep is huge. A regular schedule helps regulate its rhythm.
Sleep strikes again.
It really does. Exercise is generally helpful too, although really intense workouts can cause a temporary spike.
Okay, moderation maybe?
Seems sensible. Mindfulness practices, like meditation, get mentioned a lot, really good for managing the stress response. Maintaining a moderate weight, again, helps break that feedback loop. And diet matters too. Limiting added sugars, refined grains, saturated fats. The Mediterranean diet pattern seems beneficial here as well.
And didn't one source mention something about calorie tracking itself?
Ah, yes, the PMC review. It made a really interesting point that the mental stress of constantly meticulously tracking calories could, for some people, actually increase cortisol.
That really shows the mind-body connection, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just about the food, it's about our relationship with food and the stress around it.
Okay, moving on. Estrogen. We think of it for reproduction, but it impacts weight too.
Definitely. It has broader roles. And imbalances, both high and low estrogen, can affect weight.
How so?
Well, low estrogen levels, in particular, are linked with an increase in central obesity again, that fat around the waistline.
And this relates to life stages like menopause.
Yes, exactly. Hormonal transitions like perimenopause and menopause often bring changes in weight and where fat is stored, partly due to shifting estrogen levels.
So what helps maintain healthy estrogen balance?
Similar themes emerge. Maintaining a moderate weight is helpful. Regular exercise is important, especially when estrogen levels are naturally lower, like during menopause. And diet-wise, the advice is generally a balanced approach, maybe limiting things like red meat, highly processed foods, sweets, refined grains.
Got it. Let's cover a few more, maybe a bit quicker. Neuropeptide, why?
NPY. Produced in the brain and nervous system, it stimulates appetite and actually tells your body to conserve energy, especially when you're fasting or stressed.
And it can become active in fat tissue itself.
Yeah, potentially increasing fat storage and, again, contributing to abdominal obesity and metabolic issues.
Management strategies.
Exercise is mentioned, but the research is apparently a bit mixed on its direct effect on NPY.
Okay.
Diet-wise, a balanced approach may be reducing high-fat, high-sugar intake, but honestly, more research is needed there.
Fair enough. What about gut hormones, GLP-1?
Glucagon-like peptide-1. Produced in your gut when food arrives. It's really important for stabilizing blood sugar after meals.
And helps with fullness.
Yes, promotes that feeling of satiety. But interestingly, the signaling might be impaired in individuals with obesity. The message might not get through as strongly.
How can you support GLP-1 then?
Eating plenty of protein seems helpful. Whey protein yogurt are mentioned.
Okay.
And there's some early research on probiotics, but definitely something to discuss with the doctor before trying.
Right. Another gut one, cholecystokinin, CCK.
CCK, another fullness hormone released after eating, also involved in energy production, digestion, protein synthesis. It even helps release leptin, that other fullness hormone.
So it works with leptin, and similar to GLP-1, sensitivity might be reduced in obesity?
Seems that way, yes, which could contribute to chronic overeating if that fullness signal is weak.
And boosting it.
Again, protein seems key. Eat plenty of protein. Exercise is generally good for overall health, though direct research on CCK and exercise is limited.
Okay, one more gut hormone. Peptide, YY, PYY.
PYY. This one decreases appetite. It's an appetite suppressant.
And levels might be lower in obesity, leading to more hunger.
That's the thinking, yes. Lower PYY could mean less braking power on appetite. Sufficient PYY seems pretty important for regulating how much we eat.
How to increase PYY.
Balanced diet, again with plenty of protein. The paleo diet gets a mention as potentially helpful, focusing on protein, fruits, veggies.
Interesting.
But more research is needed to confirm that specific diet link. Exercise is mentioned, but like NPY, the findings are a bit mixed. Still, being active is generally good.
Definitely. Okay, we've covered a lot of the main players. Did the sources mention any others briefly?
Yeah, the Nutrition and Nourishment Collective piece touched on a few more. Thyroid hormones, obviously crucial for metabolic rate. Low thyroid function is a common cause of unexplained weight gain.
Right.
Growth hormone, too, involved in using fat and preserving muscle, but it tends to decline with age. And they briefly mentioned GIP, gastric inhibitory peptide, and glucagon, both involved in nutrient processing and blood sugar control. It's a complex orchestra.
It really is. So with all these hormones interacting, How can someone listening get a sense if hormones are a major factor for them? Are there signs?
Yes, that Nutrition and Nourishment Collective article had a really useful list of potential clues, things to watch out for.
Like what?
Okay, so increasing belly fat could point towards cortisol.
Right.
Feeling tired all the time,
Mm-hmm.
even if you think you're sleeping enough, that might be a thyroid issue.
Okay.
Really strong cravings, especially for sugar and carbs, could be insulin resistance knocking.
Mm-hmm.
Mood swings that feel unstable might be related to sex hormones like estrogen.
Okay.
And that frustrating feeling when weight just won't budge, despite doing all the right things with diet and exercise,
Yeah.
that could signal leptin or ghrelin imbalances.
That's a big one for many people.
Absolutely. Feeling cold often, bloating, hair loss, more potential thyroid flags.
Mm.
And if your workouts just leave you feeling totally wiped out, exhausted rather than energized, could be high cortisol, maybe what some call adrenal fatigue.
That's a really helpful checklist of things to consider. So the million-dollar question, what can you actually do? What's the action plan?
Right, the what now part. The sources offer a kind of hormone reset plan, pulling together actionable strategies.
Well, let's break it down. Stabilizing blood sugar for insulin.
Key strategy. Focus on getting protein, fiber, and healthy fats in at each meal. Balance is crucial.
And swap out refined carbs.
Yeah, go for the slow burn options we talked about, quinoa, sweet potatoes, leafy greens. And try to avoid constant grazing or eating really late at night. Give your insulin a break.
Makes sense. What about managing stress for cortisol?
Build daily stress-reducing habits. Deep breathing, meditation, journaling, whatever works for you. Even just a few minutes.
Consistency is key.
Yes. And prioritize rest and recovery. Don't underestimate downtime. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, was specifically mentioned as potentially helpful too.
Okay. Thyroid support.
Focus on nutrients. Iodine-rich foods like seafood, eggs. Selenium is important too. Brazil nuts are a great source.
And avoid inflammatory.
Yeah, limit the processed stuff. And stay hydrated, basic, but important for everything.
Good reminder. Balancing hunger and fullness hormones, leptin and ghrelin.
Again, protein and healthy fats at meals help with satiety. Strength training specifically gets mentioned for improving leptin sensitivity.
Oh, interesting. Building muscle helps.
Seems so. And eating regular meals, listening to those cues we talked about earlier.
Right. What about the type of exercise? Is there a best kind?
It seems like a balance is best. Strength training is great, builds muscle, improves insulin sensitivity, but also things like walking, lower impact movement to help manage stress.
Yeah.
Maybe to just do excessive high-intensity cardio, as that can sometimes spike cortisol.
So variety and balance.
Exactly. And remember, the research on exercise's immediate effect on ghrelin is mixed, but long-term exercise and weight loss can increase ghrelin. But overall, exercise powerfully enhances insulin sensitivity
Okay. And sleep? We keep coming back to sleep.
because it's fundamental. Aim for that consistent bedtime. Reduce screen time before bed. The blue light messes with melatonin.
Right.
Create a relaxing routine. Keep the bedroom cool and dark. Sleep deprivation is clearly linked to insulin resistance, messed up leptin and ghrelin, higher cortisol, you name it.
So that 7-9 hours is really non-negotiable for hormonal health.
Pretty much seems that way, yes.
Anything else on the action plan?
Just hydration, simple but effective. Drink enough water. Supports metabolism, detoxification.
Okay.
And meal frequency was briefly mentioned. Maybe more frequent, smaller meals could help regulate glucose, insulin, cortisol, which might indirectly affect ghrelin, though very large, infrequent meals might encourage fat storage. It's nuanced.
That definitely is. Okay, so wrapping this all up, stepping back, what's the big takeaway here?
I think the main point is that hormones are incredibly powerful players in weight regulation. It's not just about willpower or calories.
Right. Understanding this hormonal influence gives you a much more effective and maybe sustainable approach.
Exactly. It's about making those consistent, maybe small lifestyle shifts across diet, exercise, sleep, stress.
Working with your body's signals, not just fighting against them.
Precisely. These changes can genuinely nudge your hormonal balance back towards equilibrium, which can make a huge difference in managing weight long term.
And it's important to add, as the sources point out, that if you suspect a real imbalance or for personalized advice.
Absolutely. Talk to your doctor or a qualified healthcare professional. Get things checked out properly. This is general information, not specific medical advice.
Definitely. So maybe a final thought for you listening. consider which of these hormonal pieces might be resonating with your own experience.
Yeah, are any of those signs we mentioned familiar? Maybe just picking one or two of these strategies, better sleep, adding some protein, a 5-minute meditation, could be a really positive first step.
A great place to start. And if you are interested in digging deeper into evidence-based stuff around weight, fitness, and wellness, the MedFit Care podcast often explores similar territory. Just another resource out there.
Good point.
Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today into the world of hormones and weight. Hopefully it's given you some useful insights.